In the year 2020, I started a podcast about movies. Some episodes occasionally focused on other media as well. As I dealt with threatening interdimensional beings, I eventually met my other self from another universe where all the stuff I talked about got delayed. As it turns out, the stories as me and my guests described them were presented very differently in that other universe. So I continued podcasting these recaps, which apparently sound like improvised reviews, to entertain listeners of that other universe while they waited for the new release dates. Some episodes even focused on content of years past that did not come out in that other universe for whatever reason. The year is 2022. The podcast is now bi-weekly, unless stated otherwise. My name is Shinder, and you're listening to Delayed Replay. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that came out in our universe, but got delayed in that other universe. I'm your host, as always, Shinder, and joining me once again, you may have heard him on a few other episodes of this podcast, is Vinny Tangherlini. How's it going, dude?
Yo, it's good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's, this is quite a big movie, the 8th Mission Impossible movie in our universe, titled Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Nerve Negative.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's the longest title of any Mission Impossible.
Yeah, I mean, over in that other universe, what they're doing is 7 and 8 are like Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Dead Reckoning Part 2. So they're doing like the Part 1, Part 2 thing that everyone just loves, right?
Boo. I think honestly that's one of the worst things movies have ever done.
Yeah, like that's a trend that started with like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, right? And then Hunger Games tried it, and then the Divergent series was gonna try. Twilight tried it as well, right?
Yeah, Divergent tried it, but had to get canceled.
Yeah.
And The Hobbit sort of did that.
Yeah, like it was gonna begin as like The Hobbit Part 1 and Part 2. Like it's gonna be Part 1 An Unexpected Journey, and then Part 2, I don't know if it was gonna be called, I think it's gonna be called either Desolation of Smaug or Battle of the Five Armies, but then they're like, screw it, let's make it 3 movies, use all these titles, and it was just bad. But yeah, and Avengers Infinity War and Endgame were originally announced as Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, but they decided, nah, that's stupid, let's change it. But over in our universe, Across the Spider-Verse is like Part 1 and Part 2, whereas in that other universe, they had more time to think about it because of the delays, and we're like, you know what, Part 1 and 2 is stupid, let's call one Across the Spider-Verse and the next Beyond the Spider-Verse, whereas over here, we're kind of stuck with Parts 1 and Part 2 because we didn't have as much time. Yeah. But yeah, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Nerve Negative, a direct continuation of the 7th movie, which we talked about last year, Mission Impossible Code Contact. The marketing for this 8th one is kind of weird because on the posters, it'll say MI8, but it'll be stylized like the Men in Black logo, MIB, so it's like kind of confusing. Like, wait, is this a Men in Black movie or what is this?
I would love to see Tom Cruise in a Men in Black movie. I'd be all for that.
Right. But yeah, like this continues from that cliffhanger at the end of the 7th movie where Esai Morales, the villain he played, I think he was called the Gambler. Like, he actually won. He used this device that emitted a sonic sound that made everyone in the world feel lonely. And the last word he said as he shot himself to death was nerve. And so for this past year, we've been wondering, like, what does this mean type of thing. And here we pick up with our heroes, and they're pretty divided. And Jeremy Renner is actually back as William Brandt, and he's pretty much in the same position as his other character Hawkeye was at the beginning of Avengers Endgame, right?
Yeah, he sort of completely isolated himself from the team to sort of enjoy the quiet life, as it were. But as we find out in the first few minutes of the movie, the quiet night or the quiet life is not for Jeremy Renner. That guy can never
Right.
catch a break.
Yeah, for sure. Like they're like all these criminals who are like they like show up and are like leave me alone type of thing. It's like it's this weird thing where it's like some people, because of like how the effects of this device, some of them really want to be alone, and as a result of and also fear being alone, and so they fear other people but also fear themselves. It's like really confusing, but it's like that it causes them to try pushing each other away, and like, you know, it's like brother against brother type of thing, or it's really weird, right?
Yeah, like it's deep. I don't know. The cliffhanger really like scared me because it was deep, and this sort of
Yeah.
explores the intensity of what that would do to you, and the way people sort of adapt to being alone. It's kind of brutal.
And so when they're fighting Jeremy Renner, he's like really punching them. He's like, "Get the hell away from me," type of thing. And he's like really kind of emo. He like has like a haircut that sort of signifies that. But like the team tries to like get him back, and they're saying like Ethan Hunt is trying to say, "I think that if we work together again, we could try to find a solution to all this." And he says the line. He says, "Don't do that. Don't give me hope."
It's very yeah, it's the battle of wills, really, of how do we come together when everyone doesn't want to come together anymore. And you particularly see that with Jeremy Renner. I think he's really uh entrenched himself in the being alone, um at the top of the film.
Yeah, like some of the characters are cool with doing like video calls, but he doesn't even want to do video calls. It's that's how it's affecting him. So we see like how this has sort of different effects on society as a whole, and it's really eerie.
Yeah, really, like, and for the other universe, probably very close to home. Uh,
Yeah, too close to home.
Too close to home. Good thing that didn't happen to us.
Since the last film, they've spent some time trying to figure out what does nerve mean, and so they have like this like the red connecting strings type of thing. One of them's like, I tried doing a Google search but couldn't find anything. But then I used Bing.com, and that was actually a bit more helpful, surprisingly.
That sounds right. Bing, in the Mission Impossible series, has always been the number one search engine.
Yeah. Yeah, the weird thing about Bing is that I don't use it often, but I do really like the background images that they have like on the home page. I think they change it daily, and it's like, wow, these photographs are actually really nice. It's too bad people don't look at this enough.
I'm looking at Bing right now.
Oh my gosh.
It's a pretty sick background image. It's or at least mine is showing.
The ocean or a lake or something around there, like some boulders in
It's
it.
the Baltic Sea in Estonia. That's what
Okay.
it says at the bottom.
Yeah, we're recording on August 29th, which weirdly is like the 25th anniversary of when the original Judgment Day would have been in the Terminator movies.
Ooh, epic.
Yeah. But yeah, in this Mission Impossible movie, Judgment Day has pretty much already come. And what'd you think of how they figured out like what nerve actually is?
It was, I think it almost to the support of the people being alone. It kind of took each member of the crew going off on their own to sort of come up with the theory collaboratively, but they sort of needed time separately to do it. Basically, discovering that the nerves are what is controlling this feeling, and if we can rebuild the connection between certain nerves in the body, the feeling of aloneness and desire to be alone would go away. So, but it was interesting how they doubled down on like the crew needed to go separate, almost in like a individual montage, which was kind of cool. It was cool to follow each character for like almost like a couple minutes each, and see how they kind of came to that conclusion simultaneously, but individually.
Yeah, it was kind of like the breaking of the Fellowship, in Lord of the Rings, except instead of a couple, at least like it's like 3 or 4 different groups, right? It's like usually it's like a couple at the very least, or if you're Gandalf, I guess just one for a bit. But here it's like each person is going alone to all these separate locations around the world that would probably look nice as Bing.com backgrounds.
But yeah, and so they sort of figure it out individually, and that prompts them to try to get back together to see if their theories will work. But I love that idea of like, oh, we all figured it out on our own at the same exact time. It was kind of a cool like twist, right? As opposed to like the plan comes together, it's like all the plans happen and then they share the knowledge with each other.
Yeah, I kind of get the theme of that, but to me it just seems kind of corny and not very realistic. Like they all come up with it like at the same time, and I guess it's supposed to show how connected they are and how they each came to it. But it's like when I was sitting there in the theater, I was thinking to myself, they just did this to show off the cinematography. They didn't need to do this, you know.
Yeah,
all these glaciers and mountains, like they just did it for the cinematography,
which was impressive.
I mean, yeah, it did look great, but yeah.
But yeah, it's very and it's an easy cop out, right? Like but in a way that I feel like it's tough, like to end on such a cliffhanger and then to come back with like, well, we're gonna solve this seemingly insurmountable problem. I think they still made it interesting, even though it is sort of like, and they all figured it out on their own and then came back together. It's like, oh, okay. But, like, I don't know. The way they did it, I think, the cinematography, the sort of the pacing of that sequence, it's like a really good pacing of a sequence. You get each person for a little bit, and then they kind of start to overlap. It feels really... I don't know. It got me excited. I got hyped.
Right. So they all come together and they talk about, this whole thing, like we mentioned, how like it's all in the nerves, and they have to find some scientist who's like really experienced with working on this type of stuff. And so they do even more searching online, and they narrow it down to this scientist who's played by Mark Gatiss, whom people might remember in a few different roles from Doctor Who, and he's even written some Doctor Who and maybe Sherlock even. But yeah, they have to go find him in Newfoundland, where he's attending someone's 75th wedding anniversary celebration.
It feels like the most like giant MacGuffin. But it comes back into play. The people having their 75th wedding anniversary are important to the plot. But it feels like it's very set up to be the throwaway, like, oh, we gotta go find him and he happens to be at this event. So it was cool that they tied it back in later. But yeah, it's like absurd connection to this scientist guy.
Yeah, and Ilsa did a really great job, like, doing research on the backgrounds of, like, this wedding and everything, and, like, the invitations. Like, she somehow got a hold of, like, the invitations and, like, replicated them. Cause she was like, okay, we're gonna crash a wedding, because, like, they have to go undercover at this wedding, and, Benji like brings a couple different suits from his closet. He's like, which tie looks better? And he has like a Star Wars tie and a Star Trek tie, and it's like the team is divided on like which one looks better.
Which was a nice little touch for Simon Pegg, having been in various sci-fi things. But yeah, like I think it gives levity, right? Like like we ended the last movie in such a deep, dark place that to give like this sort of humorous, okay, we're going to this 75th anniversary, like we gotta sneak into this party. It all like it makes a heist out of something kind of comical and fun. Uh, but they bring all of their heist skill. You know, they're gonna break into this wedding. They're gonna crash a wedding in the most Mission Impossible way you could.
Right. And Benji, of course, chooses the Star Trek tie because it's Paramount, but because, of course, but he's also, like, despite how humorous he's being, he's still sort of dwelling on how, like, toward the end of the seventh movie, he had to kill, like, one of his old friends, the one played by Nick Frost, because he was one of the, working for the villain, and so it's taken a toll on him. So every now and then he'll have flickers of, like, when he had to go up against him, and it's just, yeah, it feels very real.
They give Simon Pegg some real acting to do in this one, which I feel like they've used him mostly as like, well, you're funny, so be the comedic relief.
Right.
They really dive deep into the character in this one, which is really cool.
Yeah. And so they go to the wedding, and it's, everyone is dressed like how they're supposed to, like, according to the dress code or whatever. And there's this moment where, like, the usher or whatever, or bouncer, whatever the right term is like, it looks like they're questioning whether they actually belong at this place. But they're able to, like, convince them that they do belong here. And so, because they've done their studying, they've read up on, like, who these people getting married are and who some of the other guests are, and so they've done their research.
Yeah, they approach it like they do any mission, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And so they sit through the couple renews their vows, and then there's, like, the reception type of thing. There's a band playing, like, saxophones and stuff. It's just, it's very classic, feels kind of 1930s movie-esque type of throwback. It's really nice. Of course, they have a mission to accomplish, like, they have to, like, pretend they're, like, dancing and stuff, but it does get kind of intense, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely also some romantic tension on the front.
Yeah.
Poor Ethan Hunt. Constant romantic tension. Yeah, like it does the perfect combo of drama and comedy, right? They're in this absurd scenario. And so, of course, they do the dance sequence where they eventually end up with the doctor whilst dancing, trying to, like, each one of them singly keeps pulling him aside to try to get their info out, explain to him what's going on, but while keeping the dance going. It's, again, another, like, masterpiece of cinematography, if maybe a little cheesy, like, but a cool way of getting all of the info to the doctor. Who by the end of the dance is fully on board with trying to explore this theory about the nerves.
Yeah, they do, like, this switching partners thing to, like, coordinate all of that. And there is a point along the way where Ethan is dancing with Haley Atwell's character, Grace, and he's like, sometimes I'm not sure if I can really trust you. And she's like, well, maybe you just have to take a leap of faith, or something cheesy like that, and it's just
very cheesy.
It's like, who is Haley Atwell's character even? Because, like, we didn't learn that much about her last time, so it's like we're waiting for everything to be revealed about her.
Yeah, big build up to that reveal, but not at this point in the movie. Don't know yet, but much later in the movie do we get a sense of who Grace really is.
Yeah, so the scientist, played by Marky Gatiss, his name, do you remember what his name is in this movie?
Oh yeah, he's Dr. Stephen King, which I don't know how that got past the writer's room.
Yeah.
It's too, and like, yeah, they call him like Step or something, so he's like Step King, but like,
yeah,
he's Dr. Stephen King. Like, it was like, come on, man.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, I had to shorten it so because people wouldn't stop talking about that other guy.
It's like, why give him a name and then why acknowledge it? Like, just like give him a different name, or just make him Dr. King, but give him like a
Right.
different first name.
Well, yeah, because if they just call him Dr. King, Martin Luther King is like king of that name, basically.
I don't know. Just definitely give him a different name.
Yeah. They have him on board and they're ready to bring out, but then some other wedding crashers have sort of caught whiff of what they're trying to do, and they're like, no, we want everyone to feel alone. And this is a strange occasion, like this wedding, like it actually does bring people together, so it kind of feels like thematically love is part of the solution of bringing people together to make people less alone. And it's like, I get what the movie is trying to say, but in my head I'm like, I'm not sure if all this makes complete sense.
It feels a little hammy, but I mean, they're trying to end the series with something, I think. So I think they're really trying to give it something strong to end on.
Right, yeah, definitely. So these like enemy agents like crash a wedding. They even like ruin the cake, which is probably the saddest thing that happens in this scene. Well, like I know that some people die in this scene, but ruining the cake is definitely the saddest thing that happens.
It's a bummer. It's an impressive cake. Again, man, the cinematography makes this cake look as cool as it possibly could.
Yeah, like for like several seconds, the camera was like panning across the cake. It's like, damn, I wish this was like 4D. I want to taste this cake. And so, yeah, everyone's like fighting, like at this celebration, and the agents manage to kidnap the scientist who manages to put up a fight for a bit. He knocks someone out with like the Star Trek volleyball hit technique type of thing.
Yeah.
And when he does that, he's like, wow, that worked. But then someone like knocks him out in the back of the head, like the same technique, and he gets kidnapped.
Yeah, so of course now he's on board to help them, but now he's been kidnapped by this other rogue group how they got into the 75th anniversary, how they like uh
Yeah.
I don't know. A little shaky. But again, it feels very much like they're trying to wrap up a whole series by bringing back everything that we want to have. So
Yeah. So now they're kind of back to square one, and they do manage to find a clue about these agents, because one of them accidentally leaves their shoe, which feels kind of silly. It's very Cinderella-esque, but they like scan like the symbol like on the sole of the shoe, and it's like, why would an organization have like the organization's symbol on their shoe? It like makes no damn sense to me.
It feels a little like James Bondy, right? Like
Right.
Spectre, like I don't know. It's a little cheesy.
Yeah, so they scan it with their computer and pull it up, and they are able to like triangulate, or at least that's what they say. I never really know what triangulate means, but they say they're able to like triangulate and cross-reference to find the location of these agents. And so they're off to another location, and this is like across the Atlantic or something, right?
Yeah, they have to go fully over to Portugal for this next, which is honestly the Portugal sequence is one of my favorite sequences. Like it is obviously they're in Europe, so you know what it means. Another train.
Yeah.
So there, of course. But this is like interesting because like so far the trains have always been at the end of the film. This time train sequence mid-film, kind of early, like the end of Act 1, beginning of Act 2 of this film. So very like different. But of course, classic, they're on these trains. They've got to fight the agents and find the doctor who happens to be on the train. They do. Ving Rhames' character, of course, is like a computer whiz. He like sets up shop in the caboose and has just turned it into his like tracking system so they can like track the doctor throughout the train. And it kind of goes into like a weird what is that movie? Snowpiercer, where like they go through each car, right? Every time they advance from the caboose on, like there's another fight for them to have. There's another agent stop, and so it's kind of a cool sequence, especially for an action sequence. And again, like they do this cool thing where everyone kind of gets their own moment. Jeremy Renner's character gets like some fighting in there. We got even Benji fights. Like it's a very like cool, unique sequence that isn't just like cool. And now Tom Cruise is gonna kick some ass. It's like everyone kind of does in their own way. Even Haley Atwell, who I still do not trust.
Yeah. Yeah, and Snowpiercer is the one with Chris Evans or something, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're on the train. Civilization is all stuck on this train because the snow outside is taken over.
Okay, yeah, I think you mentioned Snowpiercer in the previous Mission Impossible episode we did, funny enough.
You're just really stealing from Snowpiercer, man.
Yeah.
Or I just like in everything.
Also stealing Captain America's girl, you know?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, but this train sequence is really wild. You know, everyone, like we said, has their moment. You know, we got the team members, and they even have like a few other people who like weren't on the team before, but you know they had to recruit them. So which is why you have all these other actors who hadn't been in the previous movies, and so it's kind of a bigger team, like double the size, and it's like a different dynamic kind of, and it also makes it even more action packed, you know, having it so many people fighting on the train, and there are all these passengers who are like clueless about what's going on, and they're just like, I just want to go to the opera type of thing.
That's maybe the best part is there's literally like people on the train. Like I think when they kind of set it up, I thought it was going to be like, oh, this is like a rigged train. Like this is all bad guys. But then it's like, no, this is a normal train. So there's like, you know, protect the civilians also.
Yeah, but of course the civilians are like seated with like wide gaps between them because of the being alone thing, you know.
Yeah.
But like things really go off the rails when the enemy agents manage to get the train itself off the rails, and so it like goes into the street, and it's like, whoa, what's gonna happen?
This is of course also the sequence that I love, where the train is now off the rails. It has crashed into the Portuguese zoo. And so there, of course, there's a rhinoceros now that is crushing the train. So there's a whole, it's the top of the train sequence all over again, but this time with a rhino.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Portugal sequence, one of my favorite sequences.
Yeah, it's very, with the rhino, it becomes very James and the Giant Peach, you know? I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but
yeah, dude, the claymation one. It's so
well, it's stop motion, but yeah. Maybe there was clay. I don't know. I don't know my materials, but yeah, it is stop motion, and it's
definitely stop motion. I said claymation meaning stop motion,
right?
Clay, but I meant stop motion,
right? And there is a rhino that's like a storm of clouds, which growing up I always took literally, but as an adult, hearing other people on another podcast talk about it and wondering like whether it's like a metaphor, I'm like, I always like took it as like exactly what it looked like because of how absurd everything else in the movie is.
Sure. I think, I don't know. I think, and again, they didn't do like it wasn't super cheesy. I thought it was very well done as far as like having a rhino crush a train. Yeah, I mean, it's a rhino on a train. But of course, Tom Cruise can best any rhino.
Yeah, he like manages to calm it down and ends up riding it. Like only Tom Cruise could tame a beast and have it help him out, you know.
And they saved the doctor at the end of it all, right? They kicked some ass, tamed a rhino, saved the doctor, which again, like all feels like a diversion, but is tied back in later.
Yeah, they try to tie everything in later. Like they do all these setups. We'll get into all that, but yeah, once they have the doctor, they're like trying to escape, trying to get to some sort of safe house, But of course, the enemy agents, they have this device that causes an earthquake. And so for a little bit, it's like Ethan Hunt is like running like horizontally. So like normally, on the street, but the earthquake is like so strong that causes the ground to like flip 90 degrees. So now it's like Ethan Hunt is like at the top. He has to run all the way down like he's running down a building type of thing.
Another impressive sequence of cinematography. Like this movie gets more insane with each passing scene. But the earthquake device is like pretty epic because it separates the group again. The group that has worked so hard to come back together in the first half of the movie is now totally scattered by the earthquake. And now again needs to come together.
And so each person is feeling really down. This is like their lowest point. They're all reflective, each sitting in like different places, like on a stoop or in a cafe or something. The Smashing Pumpkins song 1979 is playing, so it's like really conveying the mood that everyone's feeling.
It was an interesting choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But fitting. But yeah, like it, again, similarly to the sequence where they all discover the nerve stuff, like it like gives you a little bit of each person and then comes together again with really cool pacing as they figure out how to get back together.
Yeah, for sure. And so, one of them sends out a code and they're each able to decipher like what the code means, and that tells them where to meet. Like, I guess like they could have like tried their cell phones, I guess, but I think the way they set it up is like, oh, that would be too risky type of thing. So they figured out like this other way to get connected. Vin Rames' character being Luther, being such a computer whiz, is able to like figure out how to reassemble the team, really being sort of like a Nick Fury type of character, really, the person in charge type of thing. Giving the inspirational words or whatever.
Yeah, he seems to be the most able to bring the group together, even in a way that like Ethan Hunt isn't really able to.
Yeah, so flowing seamlessly from what we were saying before, the team is back together, and this, like the rest of this movie, is really payoff after payoff, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much everything that you were like, okay, I guess that was just a thing, now comes back. The rhino, for instance, it turns out to be a prime example of the nerve. Like the rhinos, I guess, have the same nerve that we do, but in a much easier to study fashion. So they're able to use the rhino to study the nerve that they need to reattach to basically bust this. The curse is almost what I said.
Yeah.
The feeling aloneness. They use the rhino, so that's like immediate payoff. There's so many more.
Yeah, for sure. And there's even like a weird cameo for where like at first it looks like Stephen King himself shows up, like the actual author, and so they're like, what are you doing here? And so he's like, there's something I need to reveal, and so he pulls off he's about to pull off he like pulls off his mask, and lo and behold, it is Peter Graves, or like a visual approximation of what Peter Graves' face would look like. The original guy played Jim Phelps in the Mission Impossible TV series, because in the first movie, John Voight played that character and ended up being the villain, and so they end up like explaining that, oh, that guy was an imposter. He like managed to steal the original's DNA and faked getting his face blown off in a mission and getting facial reconstruction surgery. And this guy's been like, he was captive and then he was in hiding and then he was like investigating a lot of stuff in the shadows. And it's like, wow, oh my gosh, they're actually undoing the thing that everyone hated about the first movie.
Yeah. Like the most payoff of a retcon
Yeah, dead retconning, one might say. Yeah, it's like kind of slick how they do it, because like they don't show, because Peter Graves, he passed away in 2010, but they try to do like a CGI face for a quick second, and then in the flashbacks they show, like, I don't know if this is actual footage of him or if it's like they used older material to sort of reconstruct it, but they sort of hide it by making it black and white and grainy, but it works, type of thing.
Yeah.
And so when they cut back to him, he's like, but for now I'll wear this mask for the rest of this mission, because I feel like it kind of suits me. And so that's kind of how they get away with not having to show the CGI face the whole time. So we see Stephen King from now on when we see him.
Which, what a cameo. To get Stephen King in your film. Also at this time, Grace fully removes a mask. And who should she be but Ethan Hunt's ex-wife? This whole time, all the romantic tension built up between them is actually between him and his ex-wife.
Yeah, and it was so weird because in the 6th movie, Fallout, I think it seemed like, she had moved on and it seemed like they had closure, but here it feels like they sort of backtracked. It's like, what is this film series doing to me? Like, this is, I mean, to me, this felt like what happened with Captain America. Like, over the course of the Avengers movies, it felt like he was moving on and we were getting used to the modern times, but then they take that away and send him back with Peggy Carter, played by Haley Atwell, and it's like sort of feels like a step back, like he couldn't move on, type of thing. And I get that people love the pairing, but it kind of felt left field to me there, but I got used to it. Whereas here, it feels even more left field. It's like, I don't know how to feel about this.
It's pretty left field. It's also weird that she does the same thing where she's like, but I'll put the mask back on and be Haley Atwell for the rest of the mission. So it's like, wait, what? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was to give like a more conclusive love story, right? Like Ethan Hunt's character hasn't really had that strong of a love story, and the Grace one got some backlash, I think, from the 7th movie where people were like, wait, what? I don't know if I trust her. He can't be in love with her. So I think there's like, they put that in there.
Yeah, and he kind of makes a thing about it. He's like, how can I trust you if you wear a mask? And she's like, you've worn a mask the whole time you've worked with this organization. It's like, ooh, burn! Got him.
Got him hard. Yeah, so they obviously have more stuff to work out.
Yeah, they're both super deceptive, so it's like they might as well end up with each other, I guess, if they're gonna be deceptive against other people. It's kind of like Friends. Ross and Rachel are both terrible, so they should be together so they don't inflict suffering upon other people by being with other people.
Burn, hot Friends takes. But yeah, so they come up with a plan to basically revigorate the nerve that was basically shut off to cause this in the previous movie. They come up with a plan to disseminate it throughout the whole world. But it's not that easy.
Right. Many things aren't that easy. Not even being cheesy, as Chester Cheetah might say. Yeah, because they have to they have to like use, it's always a device, right? They always have to use a device. So they have to use something and it feels very Jimmy Neutron-esque, which I guess is fitting because Nickelodeon is owned by Paramount, I guess. But they have to shoot the formula into the sky, and it has to rain down across people, like in bursts, like across the globe or whatever. But this type of device is only in the hands of like the enemy agents, and it's like, wow, that's kind of contrived there. I don't know why. I don't know, but yeah, that's the next thing they have to do.
Yeah, and it's is is what it is. uh, Again, I don't know. It feels like just payoff, trying to tie everything up with a bow. Um,
Yeah. And then they sort of throw this other random curveball where another Ethan Hunt shows up and he's like, I'm you from another universe where you failed at this. And so in that moment, I was sitting in my seat and I was like, are they doing multiverse? Should I just get up and walk out of this movie? And like I would have if I didn't have to do this for the podcast. But yeah, we have like two Tom Cruises. And so he's like, I'll show you how to infiltrate the place so that you don't fail. And he explains that in this other universe, he's also a billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. So, I guess a reference to how Tom Cruise could have played Tony Stark almost. Yeah, but once he brings them there, he gets him captured and he's like, surprise, he pulls off the mask and he's actually one of the enemy agents. And he's like, you really freaking believe the multiverse is a thing, you stupid idiot. I was like, oh, okay, the movie has me again. All right.
Yeah, it was a twist. Not one that I saw. It was a twist upon a twist, which was honestly pretty great. I dug double twists.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it was cool for me. Even though, yes, I was right there with you. I hate the idea of it. Like, wait, there's a multiverse, but we've already got like the whole like he stole like my DNA and cloned me into a villain. But it's what
yeah.
it is.
Like it felt like they were trying to like ride on that trend, but then they're like, actually, nope, that trend is kind of dumb. Like it felt like a satire. It was like The Onion made this movie or something.
Yeah. So now, of course, they're captured by enemies for the final showdown.
Right, but it turns out that the ones who were, we saw the team get captured, but it turns out that they are also not the team. They are decoys and they take off their masks and we see like even more celebrity cameos than we saw in the 7th movie. What faces did you recognize?
Well, some like weird, like they really did some interesting cameos because I mean we're talking like 20, like a pan over 20 faces. It's hard to tell who's all in there. Half the cast of The Office.
Yeah, like I think Angela Kinsey was there. Phyllis
plays,
definitely.
Kevin was there.
Oh yeah,
like, a bunch of random people from The Office.
The guy who played what's the guy's name from Parks and Rec? The guy that people like to forget existed. Brandanowicz or whatever his name was.
Mark Brandanowicz.
Yeah, he was also there.
He was there. Good reach. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
And like I feel like Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
It was a fast pan. And they were like, I don't know. It was nuts. And then it was like epic showdown, massive fight. Right, everyone's fighting again. Even Benji's fighting. Like,
yeah,
total like bunch of gut punches. Very epic sequence. No train, but still pretty epic fight.
Yeah, like everyone has their moment. Like every character gets to do a cool move. So they get such appropriate screen time for each of their spotlights to the point where like it feels like everyone gets enough time to the point where the whole sequence adds up to like 20 minutes but it doesn't feel like 20 minutes because the showcasing of each of them just feels so good.
Oh yeah. This movie is like 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a fun ride the whole time.
Yeah, that's a few minutes longer than Avengers Endgame even. Yeah.
It's pretty nuts. And I can't say that I hate it. I kind of dig it. But yeah, it's a marathon, so brace yourself.
Yeah, and Ethan Hunt finally gets to the device, but of course has to fight like the head enemy agent who's like, we gotta protect the gambler's legacy. He wanted us all to feel the same feeling, and we can only achieve that by all being alone. And Ethan's like, no, we can all feel the same feeling by all realizing that we can feel the love. And they punches him and he like falls off the building.
And him falling off the building activates the device, of course.
Yeah.
But then the rain shoots up and everyone starts to feel less alone. It's a pretty, like, man, this movie's cheesy as hell.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, like, the audience was cheering. Like, it's that kind of cheesy. Like, good cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah, so like everything is like raining down, and for a moment there is like some hesitance. You know, some people are indoors and being like, I don't know that I want to go out in the rain. But then they see how like everyone who's getting hit by the rain outside is suddenly like, you know, spinning around looking like they're having fun as if it's a snow day. And they're like, wait, it's making everyone feel better. And so they all get outside to get a piece of that happiness action. And it's like the whole world, you know, across various different nations. We got a montage. So, you know, again, showcasing the cinematography. We see some kangaroos and stuff, you know, like the wilderness. And it's like
very like when George Lucas redid Return of the Jedi, and there's like this celebration when the Empire's destroyed.
Yeah,
like it feels very that way, where you're just like, what? Okay.
Yeah, like there's
again, like cheesy in a good way.
Yeah, there's even like some people who are like tearing down a statue in some random park, but the statue doesn't even like really look like anyone. It's just a random statue, just generic. It's like, what's this supposed to signify? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
There's even a random cameo of Luis Guzman, you know, dancing happily in the rain. And it's like, yeah, we're back to normal, son. It's so random. But yeah, everyone's feeling happy, and Ethan and his wife Julia, and she explains that like she split up from the other guy before she masqueraded as Haley Atwell, and was like, yeah, like it just didn't work out. He could see that there was still something between us, and I knew that was true as well. And this is when they do like a final dance, you know, Avengers Endgame style, but she takes off the mask so that it's the original actress who played Julia, you know, for like those couple seconds, you know.
This is when they reveal that a bunch of the OG cast, again using the same technology they used for Peter Graves.
Yeah, sort of the Grand Moff Tarkin Rogue One thing.
Yeah, the two of them were the folks at the 75th anniversary, the 75th wedding anniversary. Like, they do a whole sort of retconning of that team being gone and bring them back into this world as sort of a feel the love kind of thing. It's a choice.
Yeah, because I'm not super familiar with either of the older shows, but I do wonder if like people more familiar were like cheering about this. Probably definitely about reviewing that the guy didn't actually turn bad in the first movie. Like, that was a weird choice back then, so it was kind of full circle that they like undid that in this final movie of this like this Ethan Hunt series, I guess.
Yeah, like, I don't know, it was cool too to like honor those folks who basically like right at the beginning of the first movie are just like unceremoniously murdered.
Right.
Like they do a nice, I don't know, they do like a cool thing to get them back in and give them something send off, really.
Right, yeah. Like, it's definitely a cheesy fist bump type of movie that like people would probably enjoy more if they don't, if I guess if they turn their brain off. We could like debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely a choice, you know.
Yeah, but it like I said, people cheered. People were into it.
Yeah, definitely. So was there anything else you wanted to touch on regarding the ending before we sort of close out?
Only that, of course, at the end, the end credits feature fully redone version of the Mission Impossible theme by what's that band?
It was Panic at the Disco, wasn't it?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. Does
Yeah,
does
like I didn't go through that phase, so it was. But I remember someone was like, "Tell me about it." I was like, "Okay, cool."
it's
I'm
a
not
pretty
not
epic.
that familiar with them, but sure.
It's an epic redux of the theme. I dig it. I dig it a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
it's
That's the
very.
only like. I mean, that's like the end credits, so it kind of goes off with a bang. But no, I dig the ending.
Yeah, it sounds very modern. It even has like one of those EDM drops types of things.
Yeah.
Like the do 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 do. It's yeah, yeah. That was quite a 3 hours and 10 minutes journey. That
Yeah.
movie. So I guess we could go to final thoughts and score out of 10, and unit of measurement for that score. So where are your
Okay.
final thoughts for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Nerve Negative?
It, despite its cheesiness, is like a cool conclusion. Is a fitting send off for a lot of characters, and has some just like well thought out cinematography and action sequences. It surprises you because the plot's shaky, but a lot of the Mission Impossible, especially the early ones, the plot's pretty shaky. So I think in that tradition, I think it does a good job uh, making it still interesting and fun. And overall, like it's very. I don't think it's trying to win Oscars. It's trying to entertain, and it's trying to end this series on like a massive high note, and it certainly does that. My score, I'm gonna give it, and this is saying a lot. This is a 9.2. Haley Atwell Stephen King masks out of 10.
Okay, yeah, that might be like controversial that score, but
It's a high score.
yeah, but yeah, for me, this is a movie where like the more I think about it, well, there's kind of two layers to it. The more I thought about it, the more goofy it felt, and I considered like decreasing my score to like a 7 or something. But then the more I continued thinking even more about it and how it like rounds out the series and has these nice moments for each of the characters, like the more I'm like, okay, maybe it's a little bit better than I initially thought. So I think I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10 impossible missions.
That's good. Yeah, if you think about it too much, you'll you'll like it less. Don't think about it.
Right.
Just have a good time.
Yeah, like I still think Fallout is the best one, and they honestly could have ended it there, and it would have been a great ending. But like this happened, and we just have to accept it, I guess.
Yeah. This is the ending. It's the James Bond No Time to Die that none of us wanted.
Right. Yeah, well, I guess I'll do it. So thanks for joining me again, Vinny. Where can people find your stuff or your other universe self stuff, I guess? Because it's kind of synchronized now or something, right?
Yeah, it's pretty synced up. Me and the other universe, we both perform in Chicago for Comedy Sportz. So if you want to check me out live, otherwise I'm bouncing around doing silly stuff here and there, but mostly do improv and comedy in the city of Chicago. In both universes, listeners. So whichever one you prescribe to, you can find me there.
All right, nice. Yeah, and I can provide a link in the show notes like I usually do.
Perfect.
Yeah, and people can follow me at Steven Shinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook. You can follow me on Goodreads even if you want to see how I rate and review books and comics and stuff and audios.
You do want to see.
And go to stevenshinder.com for info on my book stuff like Lemons Will Like Rain, and the next book, Trespassing Through Visages, I'm trying to get out hopefully in October. Might be November if I can't do October, but yeah, it's finally close to coming out.
Hell yeah.
And Yeah, and find me on Yesshift, the vlog/podcast I do with my dad, where we talk about Yes, and have even talked to Yes members and people who've performed with Yes members. So yeah, I'll drop the links to that as well. And you can also email Delayed Replay via delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on I don't know, Panic at the Disco or something. Like
Yeah,
what songs should I listen to by them, I guess.
so many.
Yeah. All right, and yeah, that'll do it. And the next episode, taking a brief break from current movies in our universe, we'll be continuing the Men in Black series with that Men in Black 4 movie that came out several years ago in this universe. So that should be interesting.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. But without further delay, have a good day.